I'm Willie Mates Dean, Jr. I went in the service April 2nd, 1941 as an enlisted man before I had to be even sign up for the draft because the Army was expanding, so I was assigned to an office in Atlanta, and at this in the old post office building and the Walton building, and because they didn't have quarters for enlisted people, we lived at home, and I bought a motorcycle and I'd ride back from Marietta to the office every day in that motorcycle. I would have had to sign up for the draft in September, and so I just figured, well, I might as well go on in. It's April, so I enlisted, and at that time I was 20 years old, and they didn't draft you until you're 21, and so for me to get in the Army, my dad had to go to the with me to be sworn in and join. And I often kid Dad about this. When I was sworn in, Daddy said, "Well, Sergeant said, take good care of my boy." He said, "Mr. Dean said a few minutes ago he was your boy, but he's my boy now." And until I went to officer candidate school in, in September of 1942. And there I became, I got a second lieutenant in Chemical Warfare Service, which is a branch of the Army. The chemical warfare officers were stepchildren to the Army, the Air Force. The Air Force didn't like us because we wanted to train the men, and we took them away from their time of other things, and we make them wear gas masks for some time during the day and that type thing. And they thought, a lot of people thought that was useless, so our branch of service, Chemical Warfare Service, was really recognized a great deal as being important. It would have been very important had the Japs or the Germans used it, because we were ready for it. In Calcutta, we had a warehouse full of mustard gas and other ammunitions that were there, and we had to look after them, that whole warehouse, just to be sure that none of them were leaking or anything. And the Japs had used it against China for several times, and we were afraid they'd go and use it. So if they started continuing to use it, we were going to supply it to China to use it against them. But fortunately, the rules of war didn't allow it, so thank goodness we never had to use it, but we were ready for it if we had to. I didn't go to basic training. My family kids me about that a lot, because at that time they were building up the Army so fast they needed people in offices to do the detail work. So I was lucky I skipped basic training. Well, we knew we knew we was going to be in war. I mean, everybody knew that. It was just people realized that we couldn't go on without being in a war. So I was at home, I think, at the time, and it came on the radio, all personnel report to duty immediately. So I headed to Atlanta to the office, and wasn't much to do there that day. So I worked in that office until I went to officer candidate school, and at chemical warfare school at Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland. They taught us about mustard gas and different chemicals, and also different ammunitions that are chemicals, and incendiary bombs, and flamethrowers, and that type thing. And so I was commissioned in December, just before Christmas, 1942, and I was assigned to Boise, Idaho, to Gowan Field as a base chemical officer. And that was a air base where we taught, is the last place before the pilots were trained to go overseas. And my job there was to teach them how to be safe from chemicals if the Japs and Germans used it. After that, I was stationed at I went to a school at Colorado Springs on more information on ammunition. And then 6 of us were flown to India that was a China, Burma, India theater. And there we were supplying the American troops in China who were fighting the Japs. And there I taught a school on chemical ammunitions and taught the ordnance and armament officers of China, the theater, which bursters and which fuses to use in which bombs, so they'd get better results. I was in Burma, and we got news from the headquarters in Calcutta that, and we felt sure it was going to be over after we dropped the bombs. Everybody was so thankful when they did drop the bomb, and that we knew we'd be able to come home soon. No, that was a complete surprise. That was a well-kept secret, and we were all glad. We felt like Truman did the right thing, because it would have cost many, many American lives taking Japan. I was glad it's over. I was anxious to get home because I had a little girl I hadn't ever met, and because Martha Love and I got married during the war. When I was at Boise, I got a delay en route to come home, and got married, and then went overseas. Well, I came by train to Augusta, as I was discharged in Augusta, and my wife drove down to Augusta, met me, and we stayed a day or two at the Bel Air Hotel, and had a nice reunion. And but then at home, she'd left the baby with the grandparents. I hadn't seen her, so that was quite exciting to see my first child. from time to time I'd run into people that I had known. It was very strange that in Calcutta one night I went into the officers club for supper, and across the table was some officer that I had never met. He's not stationed there, and he'd grown one of these curly mustaches, and he looked different, and he looked down. I had said something to the people next to me, and he looked at me and said, "Are you Bill Dean?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm Penn Perkinson. I was my cousin." And run into him there, and in India. And then another case, I heard that Ross Reeves, who was my best friend here, and had been stationed in Alabama, that his outfit was headed to India. So I found out where his outfit was coming in, and so I went over there at the time and met him, and we had a nice visit. So those are two people. And then on the way home, as I was getting on the ship, going up the gangplank, in front of me I saw a B-4 bag that said A. Howell, Howell, Marietta, Georgia. And I punched him, and he's Archibald Howell. Family lived on Kennesaw Avenue. I didn't know him, but I knew of his family. And my wife went to the same church he did, St. James, when we heard that Jeff had surrendered. Yeah. It was nice when Germany surrendered, but the real point was when Jeff did, because that was what everybody was dreading, is landing on Japan. But I didn't save any old uniforms or anything like that. I just figured that World War II is just 5 years of my life, and it's go on and live on the future, not on the past. I've never been one to join a lot of organizations and parade and that type thing. I just, as I said, it's just part of my life. It's over. Well, it probably doesn't affect me like it did men who were in the trenches and fighting for their lives. I never had to do that. I didn't dodge it, but I didn't look for it. And I went where I was assigned and did the best job I could there. But I don't feel in my heart like soldiers would who were in Guadalcanal and landed on D-Day and things like that. I admire them to the hilt. I despise anybody who brags about things they didn't do. It was absolutely necessary. It had to be done. And Roosevelt handled it very well, getting us in it, because so many people in America who were against it. And if we hadn't gone in it, well, it might be a different world today. I was never in any action, and I was very fortunate, always had good assignments, and I'm no hero or anything like that, so, but I just served 5 years in the service like all the other guys here in town did. I didn't dodge it, but I wasn't looking for it. I don't wear one and don't broadcast it, but I'm glad people recognize that men did give their all for the war, and we lost some mighty good men. And many of them right here in Marietta that I know of it were killed in World War II. And but they deserve all the credit.